Hey, my name is Nate and welcome to the channel. I have an update for you. Remember the Dominion voting systems lawsuit? They sued Sidney Powell, Rudy Giuliani, the MyPillow guy. Well, the first of the defendants has now filed a motion to dismiss, which is Sidney Powell. And this motion to dismiss is very interesting in a couple of different reasons. But I'm not going to spend a whole bunch of time explaining to you the ins and outs, but just what you need to know. So let's get into the motion to dismiss, and I'll explain to you what is happening. So Dominion Voting Systems sued Sidney Powell for $1.3 billion for claims of defamation, specifically defamation per se. Sidney Powell was going around saying that Dominion Voting Systems was committing election fraud, mass election fraud. Dominion Voting Systems then sent Sidney Powell a cease and desist. She didn't abide by the cease and desist. She kept saying the statements, and then they sued her for $1.3 billion. Specifically outlining each and every time that she said Dominion had committed some type of voter fraud and saying that she did so with actual malice. She knew these claims were false and did them anyway. So now, like any reasonable person, you would think, well, in the United States, you can't defame someone with a true statement, right? Truth is an absolute defense. And Sidney Powell said many, many times that what she was saying was true. So you would suspect that her response would be, well, hey, these statements are true. Or that she reasonably believed they were true based on the available evidence. But Sidney Powell is not saying that. She's actually saying, even if the statements that she said are false, no reasonable person would have believed that what she was saying was true. Now, I know that's kind of shocking because in all the interviews and all the statements, release the Kraken. Remember, release the Kraken. I'm going to release the Kraken. I have all the evidence. I'm going to prove it to be true. She says, well, no reasonable person would have believed her. I know it's kind of shocking that this would even come out of her mouth, right? After the hundreds of interviews, the thousands of hours of tape, she says no reasonable person would believe what she's saying is true. So Sidney Powell, in her motion to dismiss, attacks the defamation complaint in multiple different facets. First, she wants to make sure the standard is extremely high for Dominion to overcome. So she says these are matters of public concern, which is an extremely high standard to try to overcome if you're challenging someone for defamation. And she's saying Dominion is a public figure, which I think is also accurate. And if you have both a public figure and a matter of public concern, then it makes it extremely hard in the United States to win a defamation lawsuit because the standard is just so high. The standard that we're going to be talking about are actual malice for public figures. That means that the defendant knew the statements were false or had reason to know or recklessly disregarded the truth and still made the statements anyway, something the plaintiff is going to have to prove, in this case, Dominion. And the second thing we're going to have to discuss is whether a reasonable person would have believed that these statements, when said, were true in the context in which they were said. Now, in the filing, Sidney Powell conceded that these statements could be false or could be true. It doesn't matter. But arguing as if the statements were false, Sidney Powell says, well, even if that's true, even if these statements were false, one, that no reasonable person would have believed her, right? No reasonable person would have saw that press conference, saw her on TV, saw all these things, and believed that what she was saying was true about Dominion, committing crimes, committing fraud, releasing the Kraken, and so forth. And second, she attacked actual malice. The fact that she had statements and witnesses who signed declarations under the penalty of perjury, claiming that these things were true, that she was saying, then she doesn't even reach the negligence standard. Because don't forget, we have witnesses with signed declarations under penalty of perjury saying that this is what happened, this is what Dominion did. And her relying on those factual statements by those people is not enough to show that she had actual malice. There's no way. You can maybe show negligence and her not looking deeper, but you can't show actual malice where she knew those statements that they were saying were false and then said them anyway. Now, Dominion's obviously going to counter it saying both Sidney wrote she wrote the declarations, and on top of that, she write declarations, the witnesses came out and said, hey, those are not what I said. And let's not forget the changing some of the documents and stuff that she had presented in some of the court filings were doctored too. So, she is going to have to overcome that. But she even speaks to that in this motion to dismiss, saying that, hey, all lawyers write declarations for clients, right? But it's on the person who signs the declaration under penalty of perjury to both read it, understand it, and say, this is actually what happened. And she relied on that signature. She relied on that process. So that is how she attacked the actual malice, which I think is a fair attack for this defamation claim. But at the end of the day, it's going to be up to the judge, because these are questions of law. Whether a reasonable person like yourself would have watched all of those videos that Sidney Powell was doing and say that they believe that what she's saying is true. And second, whether Sidney Powell could rely on her own witnesses, her own statements, the documents that she wrote, the documents that she produced, if she can make all that, create all that, and then say that she relied on that, and because of her reliance on these witnesses who she's more or less throwing under the bus, saying, hey, these witnesses weren't accurate, that removes any actual malice from her. And that's why this case can't go forward as a matter of law. So that's my quick wrap up of Sidney Powell's motion to dismiss. I hope it was short and sweet and to the point. But at the end of the day, she's saying that if you believed her, you were just not being reasonable. And no reasonable person, as a matter of law, would have believed anything that she was saying about this. This is the same defense that Tucker Carlson used. This is the same defense that Rachel Maddow used. The only difference between those and Sidney Powell is that Sidney Powell is not a talk show host. This wasn't on an opinion show. That's what Tucker Carlson and Rachel Maddow had. They were on talk shows that were opinion shows. These are all opinions. So they were able to say, nobody watching the opinion show would think they're absolute facts, right? No reasonable person. Sidney Powell doesn't have that, but she's still using that same defense. She's saying, hey, I wasn't the host, but I was on talk shows, right? I was on Tucker Carlson saying that stuff. I was on Lou Dobbs saying that stuff. So me being on those shows, right, saying stuff in that context, you should hold me to the same standard as you did Tucker Carlson, as you did with Rachel Maddow. Brilliant. I think this is 50-50. This is not an easy win, because I think if you really think about the Rachel Maddow defense, if you really think about the Tucker Carlson defense, and you really think about what Sidney Powell is saying, that, hey, I went on commentary shows and did commentary. And if no reasonable person is going to believe Tucker Carlson, then why would they believe his guess? That is how you do law. My name is Nate the Lawyer. At the end of the day, it's up to you. It's not up to me. I will see you next time. I hope you like this quick one. Peace.